I'm Melissa Torres.
And I'm Marmie Leach.
And this is Movin with Mel and Marm.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Marmie.
We have a special episode today.
We do. It's Halloween.
Spooky episode.
I love Halloween.
I know you love Halloween.
I love all holidays, but I love Halloween.
You have the best decorations, honestly.
Oh, thank you. This year, Jonathan did it.
Oh my gosh.
I had permanent PVC curtain rods that I installed on my front porch for my Halloween curtains that I normally do on my my decoration.
That's amazing.
And I was not with it this year, so I didn't do my curtains. So Jonathan just did the decorations this year. So
honestly, I'm impressed.
Thank you. I mean,
how old is he's 4?
Yeah, he's 4.
That's like really impressive. It looks really good out there.
Thank you. We did have to direct a little bit. We didn't want the tombstones in the grass because, they probably wouldn't stay there very long. Yeah. But we just told him, go in the flower bed. And then, you can't go wrong with a bunch of skeletons.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Everybody on my street has started doing skeletons. Like it started a few years ago. And every year there's like 1 or 2 houses that add another skeleton. So we decided to join in on the fun this year. We got 1 skeleton and we have a bench in our front yard.
Uh-huh.
So we dressed him up like Forrest Gump.
Oh, I love it.
He's got a box of chocolates. He's got the tennis shoes. He's got a briefcase. We went to a thrift store and got all his clothes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I want to do the skeletons like climbing up the house.
Oh, one of my neighbors has that.
Really? I couldn't figure out how to get the skeletons to stick without damaging the house.
I don't know. It probably took a lot to do it.
Yeah, because I could figure out the columns, but then on the roof, how do you get them to stick to the roof without damaging the shingles? Because that's the last thing I need is to have a water leak because I put a nail through my roof to get a skeleton.
I agree. Probably not worth putting on the roof.
Yeah.
But maybe the side of the house somewhere.
Yeah. We'll see.
Are you guys trick-or-treating?
We are trick-or-treating. And we also do trunk-or-treat.
Oh,
and
fun.
I may have won a trunk from a trunk-or-treat in my life. So
not surprised by that.
Yeah. So that is always part of our Halloween tradition.
Fun.
I just love, growing up, there was a house in my neighborhood that kind of looked like a haunted house. And it was always so lively. And they handed out the king-size candy bars. And it was just the coolest thing ever. And then
the king-size candy bars are the best.
I know.
Remember we would be like, these people are so rich. They have the king-size candy bar.
Yeah. And now I'm like, oh, I'd love to be that house. But no, I'm not going to. I won't give out the grandma candy, but I'm not going to give out the king-size candy bars.
With inflation,
I know.
The bag of candy.
Candy is expensive.
It is so expensive.
Yeah.
And you eat half of it before Halloween anyway.
I always try to I let the kids have a few and then we usually end up giving away some of the candy because I'm we need to get it out of the house.
Well, this is my first year taking kids trick-or-treating.
Oh,
we didn't do it last
fun.
year because they were so little.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to attempt, they're still very little, but we're going to attempt to trick-or-treat.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we walk to a few houses, but they are very obsessed with decorations. So
that's fun.
Last night after dinner, we walked down the street and spent about an hour going back and forth between, there's these 2 yards next to each other that there's this huge dragon, inflatable dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of scared of it, but kind of love it. So we'll go back and forth between the dragon and then there's a witch and a skeleton and a ghost. And they'll be like, hi, witch. Bye, witch. Hi, dragon. Bye, dragon.
That's so fun. I mean, that's part of the fun with little kid trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
It's it's not even about the candy. It's just the experience.
Yeah.
I love it.
When I was a kid, I lived on a street. My street was called Eldemere. And one of my neighbors was always doing fun things and created a ghost for our street. And I always think of every Halloween, I think of her, the ghost of Ellie Demere was her name.
Oh my goodness.
The street. And so he did a haunted house and everything to see the ghost of Ellie Demere's house. And I was actually really scared for a little bit. On Halloween, I was like, is Ellie Demere in my backyard?
Oh my gosh. Those sound like the coolest neighbors ever.
Yeah, they were cool.
I want those neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of ghosts, we have thought about some questions that we get from buyers when looking at houses.
We have.
Or as a listing agent. And one question is, has someone died in the house? So it's an interesting conversation. In Texas, are buyers legally entitled to know if someone has died in the house?
Yeah, Texas, you know, we're kind of in the Wild West here. We're pretty loosey-goosey on like what actually has to be disclosed.
Yes. In regards to death on the property, the seller's disclosure asks if there's been any deaths on the property excluding suicide or natural causes.
Yeah, so if you think your house is haunted, the seller's disclosure doesn't ask you to disclose that.
It doesn't cover that.
Now, whether or not you should disclose it, if you're wondering, you should ask an attorney.
Absolutely.
But there are other states that require, even if a house is haunted, to disclose, which I think is interesting because not everybody believes in ghosts.
I know. That is a whole nother conversation of how do you establish, like, I don't know. That's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't know. I think so. I think I believe in like spirits and angels. Like I believe that there is probably some other like element occurring at the same time as what our senses perceive.
Right.
But I don't know.
You don't know the level.
No.
I mean, I'm on the same a little bit. I do believe in ghosts. Now, do I believe that they can hurt you or like possess you? I don't know. That's a whole nother thing, but
I'm not about to find out.
Yeah.
Like if there's a ghost, I'm literally running out the door.
Yeah. I don't want to tempt anything. I played the Ouija board once when I was 15, and my friend whose house we played at said that weird stuff started happening around his house after that. So I'm like, okay, we don't need to do that anymore.
Okay, the Ouija board is like, that did creep me out as a kid. Like it felt very real.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, it was fun, but it was scary.
Yeah.
But my aunt and uncle, they had it was before Airbnb. It was a bed and breakfast. And it was like this big old house. And it had like 7 bedrooms. It was a really cool house. And there was one room in the house that multiple guests had said that they saw a figure of a girl walking in front of the TV. And this house also had an indoor swimming pool. And multiple people told them that they would hear a little girl like laughing or playing in the swimming pool.
No. I'm like out at this point. Really?
Yeah. Turns out a little girl drowned in that swimming pool.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. True. Well, I hope it's a true story. I believe it. It's like a family story.
So creepy.
Yeah. So.
There are people that like actually want to stay in, you know, the haunted hotel room of a hotel. Like one time I stayed at Hotel del Coronado. It's a famous hotel. Like I think it's in Coronado Island or something off San Diego. And it has a historic part to it that is haunted. And I think there's like a specific room that books out probably a year or two in advance that's haunted. And I think people specifically stay there. I would never.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I've stayed at the Adolphus, which is supposed to be haunted for a staycation for Maddie's birthday. But if there was a specific room that had history, I would be like, no. Like, yeah. Even
though I like don't even know if I believe in ghosts, I still just don't. I don't want to.
Yeah, you just don't want to.
I don't want to find out.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with it. I don't want to watch scary movies. I don't want to do any of that.
I did have a buyer purchase a home. Well, it does happen often. You purchase a home that maybe the seller has died. Most of the time it's an older person. Yeah. And there's a probate. This was we realized it was a young person who had died. And so then we kind of asked the question of each other. We were like, what happened? Like, because it's just not that common that someone in their 30s passes away.
Right.
And we just the buyers kind of ultimately decided they just didn't want to know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's like one of those hard things. I think I wouldn't want to ask, but if I had a reason to think that maybe something would happen, I would want to know then. Yeah. But I mean, I've sold houses that I know that people have died in. So
I bet something that people don't think about is probably any home built before like let's say 1960 or 70, someone's probably died in that house.
Yeah. And now, like, the trend is going back to where people are going back to their homes to die on hospice as opposed to dying in the hospital. So
basically, you guys are all going to go home today and you're going to be scared out of your mind because now you've realized that your home is old and somebody has probably died there.
Yeah. Although it doesn't bother me someone passing away from natural causes.
Yeah, me either. Me either.
A murder would bother me. And a violent suicide, like somebody shooting themselves, would bother me.
Yeah, that would bother me too. I think not necessarily like the ghost aspect, but more like the person who killed them. Are they going to like come after me now because I live in this house? Like, do they think that, something is still in this house that is related to them?
Yeah.
Do they realize it's sold to a new person?
Yeah.
That would scare me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to end with a ghost story.
Yes, an East Dallas ghost story, the Lady of White Rock Lake. Have you heard this story?
The Lady of White Rock Lake.
So the legend goes that in the 1940s, the first sighting of the Lady of White Rock Lake happened. And a couple was driving around White Rock Lake late at night, probably up to no good. And they see a woman walking towards them in a white dress, soaking wet, like in the headlights. And they're like, this is not, what is this girl doing out here? And she comes up to them and is like, I need help. Please help me get home. I fell into the lake. So she gets into their back seat and she gives them an address in Oak Cliff. There's a couple other versions that have an address in Forest Hills and off Gaston Avenue, but the first sighting was an Oak Cliff address. So they start heading to Oak Cliff and the passenger turns around to the back seat and there's no longer a girl in the back seat.
Oh my gosh, the hair is literally standing up on my arms right now.
A puddle of water where she was sitting. And they go to the address in Oak Cliff and knock on the door just to see like what happened. And the man opens the door that lives there and said, this is so strange. You are not the first person to come and ask me about my daughter. My daughter drowned in White Rock Lake 2 months ago. And this happened.
Oh my gosh, that's so creepy.
Yes. Have you gone looking for the Lady of White Rock Lake?
No, of course not.
When I first moved here to East Dallas, we would, like, if we went out and we were going back home, we would drive over Mockingbird. And I would always look and I would always think about her. Like, is she going to show up in my back seat?
The lake can be, like, it's beautiful, but it can also be very eerie in certain situations. Like,
yes,
with, like, fog coming off the lake. And we all know it's not a lake that you swim in. So what else is in there? And they do find bodies on White Rock Lake.
Yes, they have.
So it's definitely a creepy place.
Yeah.
But you're going to love East Dallas. So call us if you need to buy a house here. We'll help you. And don't worry about that ghost. Just kidding. Honestly, anywhere that has history is haunted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, could you imagine being a realtor in like New Orleans?
Oh, I would be terrified to like I feel like you would feel a presence in some of those older, really, really old homes.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, like in a normal neighborhood, like when we think about it, like, okay, if there's a haunting or, somebody was murdered in a house in just a suburban neighborhood, like that's going to have a negative effect on the value. But maybe in like a historic area, like in New Orleans, maybe it could really be turned into like a good Airbnb, business, bar, like maybe it could actually enhance the value depending on its location.
I do think that it could enhance the value. Like my grandparents used to have a farm that it was very old. Like the original home on the farm was built in the 1800s. Mm-hmm. And like back on one side of the farm behind a big tree, there were some gravestones.
Oh, that's creepy.
It did creep me out as a kid. But I think it was just the family that lived there. In my mind, I remember it being like a Civil War gravestone, but I may have just made that up when I was a kid. I don't know, but.
Well, it's creepy, but it's super cool.
It is cool, but I definitely not anything you see often.
Yeah. Not in the suburbs or in the city.
Well, especially in Texas, it's a newer state. So like compared to so many other places in the country and even in the world, like our homes don't have a lot of history yet. Mm-hmm. So, as they get older and older, they will. Well, that concludes our spooky episode for today.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.